What does Eric Kendricks bring to the table, and how's he doing so far in the transition?
He's doing a good job. He's obviously he's a veteran leader. He's picked up the playbook pretty quick with a lot of the recall he's had throughout his career, and so we're slowly moving him along, and hopefully he gets on the field soon.
When you spend the bye week self-scouting and stuff, I'd imagine the last couple of games obviously impressive, holding opponents under 10 points. So, kind of what's your state of the defense going to the Final Four here?
Same thing. We got to continue getting better. You never want to sacrifice your style of play, the effort, the violence, the technique that we preach, and I think our guys have done a really good job of that. I think the bye week came at a perfect time. I think our guys were getting a little tired, which probably led to we had a lot of missed tackles, for example, against Cleveland, and a lot of missed tackles towards the end of the year. There's a direct correlation between being tired and missed tackles for football teams throughout the course of the year, and so this bye week came at a perfect time. And but overall, I mean, I'm going long answer short. It's been good. We got to continue getting better. We're still a long way to go.
How did Gross Matos look today out there in practice?
He did good. For first time out in a few weeks, obviously, we just had him go through individual, and we'll continue to build him up as we go.
For the rookies, it was their first bye week, and it's learning how to handle that. How do you think that they did handle the bye, and how have they come out of it?
I think they did a good job. We'll find out on Sunday overall, but I think a lot of them felt refreshed. I mean, it's not easy for a rookie when you go 14 straight or whatever, how many weeks we went, 13, and I not to speak for Alfred, he was one of the guys I had a candid conversation with, and you could tell that he just feels rejuvenated. But hopefully the results show on Sunday.
Is that about Cam Ward's game and scouting him? Have you seen improvement throughout the year of what he's been able to do?
For sure, he's improved significantly throughout the year. He's earlier in the year, obviously his numbers weren't great, but I think his numbers have improved week in and week out. Uber talented, can make every throw. They do a really nice job. They've been in a lot of football games and they've kind of let it slip away there in the fourth quarter. But overall, I think offensively they've been moving in the right direction. They do a lot of really good things. And the quarterback, just speaking of him, he's got a lot to him.
What do you think about a guy like Jordan Pollard and how you kind of prepare schematically?
Well, both of them, 20 and 2, two very, very good backs, two very different backs. Both physical, elusive. They can break tackles. They've got great vision and body contact balance. So really impressed with both those backs. And they do a good job getting them the football in a variety of ways. But definitely something that has our attention.
Robert, Cleveland Ferrell mentioned post-game after the Browns that even as a new addition, he was impressed that the team was able to block out the noise. How validating is it for you to hear that a veteran like him can kind of come in mid to early season and notice that?
He'd been here before, so he kind of knows what the standard is. I think it is good, but at the end of the day, that you go out there, and I think Cleve broke the team down today, and he just talked about having that confidence that when you take the field, you're one of the best in the world. You suit up, you're an NFL player, and that's the truth. And to ride with that confidence, and I think our locker room does that. I think our locker room believes that it's the best in the world, which I think it is, and they approach every single game that way.
Is a late bloomer? Like, how do you explain this run that he's on right now?
I don't know. He's doing a heck of a job, and it's not fake either. He's winning one-on-ones. He's getting to the quarterback. He's playing with great effort and violence, and you could say that. I mean, there's a lot of pass rushers who came on late. I don't want to misspeak, but I think one of the best ones of all time, Michael Strahan, came on really late. So with all these players, you just never know. You just stick to the grind with them, and you keep developing them, and you keep giving them opportunities. And guys like him, who play relentlessly the way he does, is always going to be given opportunities just because of his play style and what you can count on. And so credit to him. He's what he's been doing isn't fake, and hopefully it continues for the last 4 weeks.
The games that you guys play up front, is it more about the quarterback you're facing, or is it about the personnel that you have on your line?
Give me the beginning part.
When you're playing lots of stunning games and twists up front, you're doing lots of that in the game. Is that about the quarterback or your talent?
It's really you're game planning the offensive line at that point more than anything. You know, who you can take advantage of, where you think there's who you think you can crease. You're trying to find space in the protection. So we do a variety of different looks, whether it's 8-up pressure look or different types of show looks, just to get the O-line to see where we can create space in there, and that's where the games come from. So it's more of game planning the offensive line than it is a quarterback.
I've watched Cleveland and thought he looks slimmer this year than he did 2 years ago. That may be due to the different jersey number he was wearing. But what do you see as far as quickness, and could it be related to fresh legs, just him coming in when he did?
It could be fresh. I don't have any recall or any personal interaction with Clee. What I do know is that the guy plays like it's the last play of his life, which is what you want everyone to play with. And I think when guys have the mentality that he has with regard to effort and play style, you're always going to give yourself a chance to succeed. And, like I said, whether he lost weight, and that's kind of been the edge to give him that extra step, that'd probably be more of a question for Kasarik. But he's definitely, like I said, what he's been doing is not fake. And hopefully, again, just to repeat myself, hopefully it continues for the last 4 weeks.
How's Etor handled this year? It really hasn't been.
Who's that?
Etor. How's he handled this year?
He's been in good spirits. It could get frustrating. He missed OTAs in training camp trying to rehab, and he came back, and I thought he was progressing well. Again, it'd be a good question for him, but as far as I can tell, he's been in good spirits. He's been positive. He's working his tail off. He's trying to get back to the team.
When you do the self-scout, is there an area that kind of stands out where you want to improve on? So you use your circle like this is what I really want to hit on the last 4 games?
From a self-scout standpoint, you're really just trying to find the things that you do really, really well, and you're trying to eliminate some of the things you don't. And that's from a coaching standpoint. Like, let's continue putting players in positions that we're excelling at versus stop doing the things or asking them to do things that we clearly just can't get done. And not to get into those details, but that's really what you're looking for is more, you're not changing your scheme. Nothing dramatic is happening. You're just trying to emphasize the things that you do well, especially in this last stretch.
Sometimes Kyle has talked about not necessarily the defensive line going for the kill, but maybe just kind of containing the quarterback in the pocket. How unique is it to have a defensive line group that wants to play selflessly like that as opposed to just going for the stats and the numbers?
That's a good question. I think that's a credit to Chris and the way he coaches those guys. And I always talk about our D-line. It's relentless chaos, but it's organized in a way. And he's got those guys tied together. They understand what they can and can't do. And, I always say in coaching, you always get what you emphasize. And Chris does a really good job of emphasizing the things that they need to get done, where you can still rush the quarterback relentlessly in the way you need to win a one-on-one, but also within the confines, if you will, of the scheme and keeping the quarterback in the pocket.
Sure. Curtis Robinson's got a couple starts now, so I guess what's his style as opposed to what you've seen out of Brett's different, but him and Tatum to Curtis, how has that transpired?
I don't know if there's a different style. There is, but I think all of our linebackers have the same mentality. Curtis is really smart. He is sideline to sideline. He's relentless in that regard. They play with great effort. A while ago when we first got into the league, or when I first got here in 2017, we were still kind of a Sam linebacker needs to be 240, and a Mike linebacker needs to be this, and a Will linebacker needs to be athletic, and I find it hard to imagine that anyone else is doing that anymore in the league. And we kind of shifted really in 2018, where it was just give us 3 linebackers. All of them are the same, and whoever can communicate the best will be the Mike linebacker. And Curtis is no different than all of them in terms of size, length, foot speed, all that stuff. And he just happens to be really good at calling the defense, and he creates a calm in there.